Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lens presented by Film Hooligans. I'm John, the host, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Jason Alt.
Hi, I'm Jason, the co-host, I guess. Why can't I be Jason, the host?
You know, one day we will get the semantics down, but tonight we don't have time because we have to go right into it because we have some real talent. We have not one, but two filmmakers, and they happen to be brothers. That is Leandro and Jonathan Taub, the filmmakers responsible for a film that we got the pleasure to review, Externo. Let's roll this thing.
Now what I want is for the populations of these countries to consume our food, to use our medicine, to occupy our buildings, to invest in our banks, to watch our television programs and films, to surf our webs, to use our electricity and gasoline, to drive our cars. I want to gain the majority of the market share of each and every industries in these countries.
Thank you so much. We are very happy to be here with you. Thank you for getting us in your show. Thank you.
Love hearing what inspired not just one of you, but both of you creatively. I'd like to hear your influences that you could cite that made you want to become actors and filmmakers in the first place.
Very good question. What are the first movies I have in my memory? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Back to the Future. That are the first film that come to my mind. And we come from the generation of the gathering of the family was around the TV seeing a movie. We grow up in Bariloche in Patagonia in the south of Argentina, and the theater, in the moment we grow up, there was only one cinema. This only cinema had only one screening room, and in that screening room, there was only one movie being shown for the entire week. And if it works, another week, and if it works, another week, and so on. Normally, the delay of the movies was between a year or year and a half. Like from the moment it was released, like if the movie got released in the 88, we normally were seeing in that theater the movie in 89, 90s. And it was a big event to go to the cinema. I remember it as one of the highlights of childhood, and actually I remember also the day I went to a city, to Buenos Aires, and I discovered theaters with, like, there is many theaters inside a theater. How is that? Like, really? Like, many movies inside one, and there are many options. It was amazing. Like, I was used to go to the same movie several times.
Yeah, definitely growing up in a small town and kind of away from the city. I think movies had always had a place in our heart. As an entertainment, and the love of American movies. Being from Argentina. Hollywood was kind of, and is, the mecca of cinema, and I think there has been always this passion for stories, and it's how traditions are transmitted, and it's how emotions are passed between people. So I think there was always an interest on that in both of us, and life happened, and many years after, we joined forces, and we pretty much decided to get together to this project and shoot a movie, and here we are now.
And Leandro, you have been very publicly active creatively in the last 5 years, co-starring in Alejandro Jodorowsky's film, to public speaking, to writing books, which brings us to your latest venture, writing and co-directing your first feature, Do you feel that this is the medium you see yourself pursuing further and in the near and distant future? Are you just completely infatuated with filmmaking at this point?
Yes. Right now is the main focus of my day and my activity. I recently moved to New York, and actually I moved to the city for several productions. Now I will continue writing. I will continue touring and talking. I will continue in social media, but the focus is on movies. Is great the experience of building a movie, all the experience, and it's great.
So, Jonathan, you directed TV before, right? A miniseries called Tu Ultima Relacion, and you're currently in production on another series called Inspire. Did you find any difficulty transitioning from shooting television to shooting like a feature?
Yes, and let me let me correct it. The production, these two or not correction to add to what you just said. These two series, we actually worked together also, so it was pretty much some of the first experience in between the movie, and I think it was definitely like a different type of work. It was a smaller type of production, less locations, definitely a different process, but I think we gained a lot of experience from that for believing that we could go to the next step, which was like maybe doing a feature film. So definitely was a great experience, and it helped to decide that us working together was a good team, because was one of the first experience with shooting together, and at the same time believing that it's possible to go a step farther and do a feature film.
And although you both have collaborated in projects before, like you just explained, this film felt very integrated into like a cohesive vision. Like this is very much like a Taub brothers production. And I have no basis of comparison, but it felt like just such a cohesive project. Like it was made from people that were very familiar with each other. What was it about this subject matter that really clicked for you as far as Externo goes?
I think that in the moment we were building the movie, there was a rage within us. I hope it's not longer there.
I hope there is.
or if it's there, I hope it's well canalized.
Right.
But during the development of the film, there was a rage, and there was a urgent need and desire to build up the movie. And actually now, after all the experience of production, I look back and say, like, what a chutzpah, like what willpower, what effort, because it's a lot of sacrifice, like you stop your life because it's not something you do part-time. You stop everything else in your life to put, not only you, like a group of people, they interrupt their lives to dedicate themselves to a movie. And it's, at least in the experience of this movie, it was not something that we did like 9 to 5. It was more like 6 to 2, and trying really to use the little hours we had for sleep. And it's a transformative experience. I recommend everyone to do movies. I think it can. Maybe one day they will discover that it's a very therapeutic, good way for something.
I'll add up something to what he says that I completely agree. I think you were just talking, and I remember after the movie, the production at least was over, before the editing and all the post-production started to happen. I remember a conversation, us having and thinking like, we didn't know what we were getting into. And maybe because of that innocence, we were able to jump into the project and be able to dare to do it, because a lot of time that type of innocence or ignorance in certain aspect allows you to dare to do things that otherwise you limit yourself to daring to do it, because ahead of time, oh, this is going to happen and this is going to, and I don't want to do. And I think that approach, that very well from the beginning we realized it was we are really getting into, and once we started, it's like we need to go all the way through. But definitely there was this sensation that at the end we realized that maybe we're glad that we didn't know a lot of things that we learned through the process, because that allowed us, I think, to make it through. It sounds weird, but it was kind of like that in some sense.
So at some point, you guys must have made a conscious decision to shoot this film in English. What went into that?
Yeah, I think it was about is the most. I'm not sure if it's the most used language, but probably it's the most influential language. And we come from Argentina. We speak in Spanish, but both of us migrated out from Argentina long time ago. And we live in English, and it's kind of tricky because the accent, and
in one hand it produces a different layer, maybe of difficulty. Now that I'm thinking, the movie is really pushing certain topics that you need to be paying attention, right? And sometimes when you're watching a movie and drinking and eating, you miss something. And that thing that you miss, okay, I catch it afterwards. Oh, I know what happened there. Oh, I made the connection. And a lot of things that I noticed that happens when you have an accent, if the other person wants to understand you, it has to come closer, pay a little bit more attention. Right?
Yeah.
And it happens with everyone. The thicker the accent, if you don't want to put the effort, you're not going to, engage in conversation. But if you are interested, you're paying attention. And maybe this was consciously, but if you think of it, it provokes the audience to be much more kind of on the edge of the seat, trying to understand what's going on in certain aspects. And I think it helps push the message a little bit farther in that respect.
Well, I think it really worked for the character. Because there's scenes at the end. I don't want to give too much away if people are watching this interview before the movie. Why, by the way? But I think it works for the character because toward the end of the movie, he's on the phone mostly with these like worldwide power brokers. So he's speaking the language of these brokers of power that are sort of, this cabal controlling everything in the world. And they speak English, but he's speaking accented English, so he's like, I'm an outsider, and that's why I'm a threat to you. So I actually thought that really worked well for the character. So it's really interesting to hear you guys say that was, you didn't necessarily do it for the character. It just was a good decision you made. That's really interesting to me.
I have to admit, Jason, about what you just said, that a lot of times we are not aware of things that we do, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And like an example, in this movie, a big part of a part of the movie is how to do crazy deals in the stock market. And a couple of months ago, happened some kind of crazy things in the stock market. And the movie was shot much before. Like sometimes, like there is something happening at the same time that what is happening. And I deeply believe that that something happening at the same time that this is happening, sometimes is there to accommodate things.
Sure.
And I couldn't agree more with just like from a viewer, not the filmmaker aspect of it, because I think I even said in the review where this is a film that demands respect as far as your attention goes. This isn't like I call them screensaver movies, like a Terrence Malick film where you could just kind of like put it on, it's pretty and it's in the background, you could do dishes and stuff. if you take your eyes off the screen of Externo at all, you're missing so much, because it's not just so much to listen to and absorb that way, but you guys make it so visually engrossing also. And so and just, you know, how Jonathan just said, coming from that like kind of foreign, where that demands an extra layer of attention, where you're like, oh, I really need to understand what they're saying. So it was just a great choice, consciously, subconsciously, everything, because it really does demand the audience to put away their damn phone, you know, for once, and actually pay attention to what they're watching. I feel like Externo was just like the right movie for the right time, especially coming from the hellscape that was, you know, U.S. politics the past, you know, couple of years. But was Joseph's story something that you had in mind for a while, or has the global political climate inspired this character and the tough decision he makes to try and make the world a better place in his eyes?
Great question. I think both. I think that there is something external. There is what is happening in the world that, you know, a lot of time we get upset, like, oh, why this and why the other? We hate injustice. We hate abuse of power. We really don't tolerate when someone use another human being as an object and not respecting the other as a human being. And at the same time, there is a deeper layer, which is the own ambition and the own nature, which sometimes is out of control. We try to be saints, but we are not so much.
And not to reveal so much about the story, but
yeah,
you kind of are playing with this through the following of this person and the decisions he makes, but at the same time looking what's happening behind closed doors, and his past allows you to reveal and you know, sneak a peek into that reality, which is fiction, right? We don't say this is really what's happening, but at the same time, is it happening? And I think connecting those two things allows you to tell kind of these two stories at the same time and connect with the people, but at the same time push some ideas or some thoughts, or, you know, put some discussions over the table.
We wouldn't exactly call Externo funny as a film necessarily, but the character of Joseph has a really infectious charisma about him. Did you think that was necessary to keep the film from feeling a little too over serious and preachy?
Also very good question. Indeed, I agree with you. There is a layer of irony happening at the time, and when we see irony, we laugh. You know, we feel reflected in that contradiction, because we are a kind of irony with two legs. Like we have all many contradictions, and it comes to my mind. There is a scene in the movie that the guy is doing sport. Look how he laughs. And he's super serious, and suddenly he's with leggings, pink leggings, doing sport. Like, yeah, of course you laugh a lot.
And I think there was a little bit of conscious thought put into that, because if you leave everything so serious, you know, it becomes as you, Jason, are saying, very preachy, and at the same time, maybe the connection you can have with that character is a little bit far away. But suddenly, by allowing him to do certain things, dancing like crazy, making some sounds in front of the camera, and is this person crazy? Like, it kind of pushes you, because in certain point he's taking you somewhere, and suddenly he does something and you're not expecting, and other thing he does other things, and I'm like, oh, he's just having fun. And I think these are elements that definitely help tell the story, right?
The levity kind of made me question his motives a little bit. It was almost like, is this a super serious plot to take over the world, or is this all a game to him? Like, if it's a game, then maybe he's not necessarily out for his own gain, but is trying to like topple the power structure. So like I kind of, it made me question what I assumed his motives were a little bit. So like, I don't know if he did that on purpose, but it just I don't know.
See,
it worked, right?
But on the other end of the spectrum, to me at least, I felt like if someone were to do this in real life, they would, and they're secluded and all this stuff, they would have to dance around like a maniac or take a hammer to the wall in this seclusion, because there's so much power, but there's no one to really share it with. So he has to have some kind of outlet to release this just bottled up everything. Like, oh shit, this is all working, you know. So I'm just gonna dance like a madman before I become a madman and get consumed by my own, you know, power and hubris. So yeah, there's just so many layers to that character and the decisions that he makes, so that just make him so compelling. So it's just super well written.
Thank you so much.
And continue with that, and then the relationship that suddenly right, it appears at certain point, and I think that in connection with what you're saying, John, that creates another type of outlet for him to express maybe some other things that were a little bit more concealed right up to that point. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I made the assumption during the review that the movie probably didn't have a major studio budget, but that's not because there was any noticeable lack of quality in the setting or the filmmaking competence. It was definitely well made. Were the more stylized moments in the film always baked in, or was that a decision in like post-production to add more production value?
Thank you for the question. I think a lot of things of what you are seeing in the movie, there's post-production in edition, correction of colors and things like that, but there's no effects that happen afterwards. That's a lot had to do with the great team maybe we were lucky to have, like amazing cinematographers and in general like team that were able to capture a lot of the beauty in those destroy and decaying places, and create this type of texture and aesthetic in the movie that is very appealing. And I don't know if that's kind of what you're referring kind of with the question, but I think it had to do a lot with the nature of the places. The places by themselves were looking, as you're seeing, we did maybe few modifications. There are, I don't know if you remember, a room with a lot of, now I'm remembering, like the windows, how do you call them? On the floor, the frames of windows in the floor, and the camera kind of pans, and suddenly there's one empty, and that was positioned like that and it was like a serendipity in moments. Like we were scouting for locations and we found these amazing places, and then it's like how we can use it to also tell a story through the places and through the locations, and from going from nature to more destruction, more, so and I think it added a lot up to the film when we see it at the end.
Where, I mean, I don't want you to give away his safe space or whatever, because it's very important that he stays hidden, but where was this film shot?
This was in Germany. All is Germany, and a lot of the East Germany area is a lot of
USSR.
A lot of areas that were managed by the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and they are closed because they are not clean. Like there are some like kind of danger places, and we became a little adventure.
And yeah, definitely. And I think we fell in love a lot with those places that in some sense, some of them look post-apocalyptic. You said, like, if you need to record this, right, it's like what you're saying, a huge Hollywood production. And I think it was more like this scouting and investigating and finding that suddenly it was on the outside of Berlin, many of these places. And Berlin, remember, it was divided. It was the East, the West, and so there was all these locations that were huge constructions and architecture, like they were amazing, and things for militaries and things that tell a story by itself. After the Cold War was over, 87, 80, they were absolutely abandoned. Places like there still were, like you were saying the other day, like mines. I didn't remember. Yeah. Bombs, landmines on the floor, and they said, like, if you enter here, be careful. And we are like, okay, let's watch out where we're stepping into.
Oh, crap.
It was a real risk.
So, and I think this is also like some type of things that like indie films allows you to do. Because I'm assuming that big productions, you have insurance, you have a lot of things to deal with, that it will make it so risky, and that's why you need to recreate it. And maybe it's like the same with a small company, or when you have this ability to maneuver, and if I want to take another direction, you just did that, and the production just moved here, allows you to have much more wiggle room for doing, many things.
Yeah, I want to add something on top of that. Yes, many locations, like several of the locations of the movie, there is no chance I get into that building if I am not with 20 people around me. Not kidding you. Like many of these places we had, like they were kind of pretty rough. Like, we are a team, we go together, we take care. We had always kind of people doing security because we have equipment, but like there was a location we went out like running because we got really scared. Like we got into a abandoned hospital. Do you remember the subway?
There was this energy that
there was a lot of people living there, and kind of a big challenge.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's some that we shot into that if we look at the roof, there are like pieces that have been falling, and it's so right. But at the same, and it was raining. But at the same time, the once we made the decision and we saw him then what we just shot, it was absolutely beautiful. And then it's like a risk, like if you need to think too much about what to do it and the risk involved, and maybe you overthink it, you end up going somewhere else. And suddenly a lot of times it was like, let's do this because this opportunity just got created. It started raining, it's falling from the ceiling, let's go here, let's do. And a lot of things happened that it was like kind of a living thing, the movie, as we were filming it, because although we had a plan, we were able to adapt according to the circumstances of the moment, and we had to in one way, and we gave into that, right?
Yeah. Well, I like the choices you make, because there was something I liked about you being in a building that was in the process of being reclaimed by nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I can't articulate. Don't ask me to like tell you what the exact metaphor there was. It just.
But I think there's something, because there's one scene. I don't know if you're referring to this one, but there's this scene in which pretty much you have like a patio, like a lot of trees and greens, but at the same time you shot to the side and there's this wall and he's painting it, and it's this destroyed place overtaken by nature, but he's kind of doing something that seems like intuitive, and it's part of the message, right? In the destroy reality, somebody that is trying to fix it. It's like somebody with destroying here, and on the other side, the other putting, and building and trying to fix things.
Yes, it's true. There is something happening here.
Yeah, it's kind of the overarching kind of flavor of the movie as well, and I don't want to get into any giveaways of the plot points, but the setting itself kind of becomes a character that is so well suited to what is going on with the characters. And again, without spoiling anything, but I would like to ask a little bit about the relationship between Joseph and the character of She, played by Elizabeth Ehrlich. It seems that for someone as economically and environmentally and politically savvy as Joseph, he sure did struggle with asking a girl out on a date. So was this an aspect meant to ground the character of just like such a larger-than-life character?
Actually, you just explained very well, and there is the contradiction. The guy is a genius for doing business, a evil genius, or let's say a Machiavellian genius who has the knowledge to build a fortune starting with $2,000, but he doesn't have any talent to build a love relationship, and actually for him it's a distraction to do it, because he has a mission, it's a clear mission, and anything that takes 5 minutes out of his day for something else is terrible. So he has the inner need to connect with another being because he's alone, and that is so painful. But at the same time, he doesn't honor this need because he feels that this need is boycotting his mission. As a result, we have a difficult relationship with this wonderful character of she.
Yeah, to add to what he's saying, it's part of also his personality, right? And maybe that aspect is less conscious. It's much more like over here all the time, right? And suddenly this thing puts him out of his place because it's emotional. You need to connect over here, not here. And I think it was a nice aspect kind of to develop, because this man that could be a perfect man, but what happens if this other side is like, is not present, and I think it was nice kind of to go through that to see other aspect of him as a character.
Well, a movie John and I both thought of independently when we watched this was Darren Aronofsky's film Mother. That was a completely metaphorical movie. It was like basically a biblical allegory. So like the fact that we both kind of had that idea independently of each other made me think, did you mean to leave it a little bit open to interpretation as to whether like Joseph was a real character, or did you think that some people might watch this film and think like maybe the whole thing was a metaphor, like Joseph represented a change in the zeitgeist, or maybe nature reclaiming some of these buildings that fell to like a regime change or something like that? Did you mean to leave it open a little bit, or did you have a more definite story and we just sort of read something into it?
Amazing question. Wow. Very good question.
Yeah,
very good question.
I think what you're saying, and it happens with like many things that we see, that we start finding like different interpretations that actually fit the story. Definitely, like if we see it in perspective, and if you follow that can be a metaphor of a country or some great thing in the world, like overtaking it, and it's represented by this figure, right? And at least for us, I'm amazed when that happens, because when you can actually like, I didn't think about that, and look, actually it makes a lot of sense. So in one hand, I love that. I don't know, when we were thinking about the film, if we were able to think about so many interpretations that you could give to this. At least myself, I think it was more kind of like war mode, and we need to go here and we need to do it, and the story is there, let's go. And all that part was less into action, more like a rational thing that and it connects to the entire conversation we've been happening a lot, that these serendipity moments and how you can actually like see a depth that you didn't realize in some aspects. In other ones, I think you tell what you think, but there's this dual reality on the movie.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's a nice coincidence, the fact that you thought about Aronofsky and Mother, because when writing the script and when talking during the pre-production, one of our main reference was P of Aronofsky, his first film.
Yeah.
And not only that, also do you remember in the deck of the film, when you are developing, you create like a folder for investor, this, the other, to create references of you don't know really well how the film will end, but you start to project. And P was the first reference of Aronofsky. So it's very interesting how you
capture that.
Exactly. You capture the same essence which was there from the beginning. That was you mentioned the question. I was like, wow, like yes, P was there since the beginning. Was one of our main reference was Aronofsky with P, his first film, and how he did indeed a very metaphorical story, which is a story, but at the same time it has
following this man
and layers
like,
and
the depth.
Yes.
Our unconscious is playing tricks on us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So as he's saying, like it was there, and probably there was a conscious part, and then a lot of unconscious thing. And there's a life of watching films and reading stories and being inspired by these things that once they become part of you, they're going to find a place in anything you do, right? And probably it happened in some of these aspects as well.
Yeah, it definitely had a similar pulse to an Aronofsky film, which kind of it just like builds on itself into this conclusion, where it's just overly cathartic as far as like, not to give anything away, like you think of the end of Pi and it's just like it's cathartic in the worst kind of way, but at least there's some kind of release that happens. And it just had that very similar tone, but completely original too, because it works both ways, right? Whether it be an allegory, whether it be a metaphor, or someone that just has $2,000 and decides to take over the world, it works on every single level. And it's one of those that's fun to talk about afterwards, with a friend. Just be like, hey, so we both just saw the same movie, but here's my experience. What's your experience? Mm-hmm. And then you could kind of compare notes. And that's special. That's not something that always happens. It's not just somewhere you go to shove greasy popcorn in your face and just be entertained and then go home. Don't never think about it again. This was fun. This was a fun thinker.
Yeah, we didn't want to read too much into it though, because I read this famous account of an English teacher talking to Ray Bradbury, and she was telling her class like Fahrenheit 451 is it's an allegory for book burning. It's about Nazism and all this stuff. And Ray Bradbury's like, no, the book's about how people watch too much TV and they burn books. Like that's why everyone buys so many TVs. It's about how people watch too much TV these days. And she's like, well, I think it's an allegory for Nazism. I was like, all right, I guess, but that wasn't what I was going for. So we didn't want to transpose too much of like the fact that we like Aronofsky onto your movie. So sure. I'm glad you guys verified that was an influence, because we definitely don't want to put words in your mouth as filmmakers.
Yeah.
Although the smartest thing you could do as a filmmaker, go like, yes, that's absolutely an interpretation. just let someone have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
If someone liked your movie, don't argue. Right?
I believe that a movie is not one movie. I believe a movie is millions of movies, because really everyone has a own experience of movies. Mm-hmm. And at the end, of course, most of us, we use it as a medium of entertainment, but it's a emotional and intellectual and spiritual experience. And, like there are movies that impact each of us in different ways. Depend on what, like I saw when I was very young, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and that had a so strong impact on me that I still carry with me the person who made mistakes. He's redeeming himself, but at the end, he's very heavily castigated because of what it's terrible, and that resonates with me, and maybe with that another doesn't. Everyone is really living a very important experience, which is your life. And of course, if we build a movie which gives many gaps for the audience to fill, we are allowing the audience to complete the story and become their story with what they experience with, in the case of Externo, their ambition, their business, their love relationship, and their mission in life. If you think that this is it.
Yeah, completely agree. And thinking now about that, like if you leave too many gaps, maybe you drive the audience crazy, because it's like what they're trying to say, right? And if you grab their hand and let's say like, oh, look at that, like you're treating me like stupid, right? And at the same time, so you need to find that balance. And at the same time, with these all different readings of the film, maybe if one is really trying to push that into the story, or it's going to be very obvious, or it's not going to be able to be seen, it's a dance that it might be like really hard to obtain the deep, when you start telling the simple story and then you start going deeper and deeper and deeper to do it in a conscious level, it might be like so difficult and it might have like a completely different effect. It's saying like, no, I completely didn't understand what you, the director, were trying to say. I understood this thing, and the message, even the minimal message he was trying to say, got missed kind of in translation. So it's definitely an interesting topic and very playful one, right?
I will be very interesting to listen to a psychologist or any kind of therapeutical professional to explain us the movie. It will be very interesting.
Yeah, each one from their own bucket, right? What their feel is like the same with medicine and all these things. They're going to tell you what's wrong with the person according to their level of experience and focus and that.
Yeah,
that's also part of why there's different readings about what you're seeing. It's part of you being reflected there also.
Just like every movie is a million movies, every interpretation is the sum of all your other interpretations.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gentlemen, this is truly a beautiful effort, and I can't wait to tell our audience where to find Externo. Are there any plans on the horizon for mass release of the picture?
Yes, right now we are talking with several distributors and sales agents. This is everything on the table. Meanwhile, thanks God, the movie is having a great reception in film festival. The movie in this moment is in 27 film festival, won already 10 awards and has 6 recognitions, and we just started 2 months ago. So right now is like being screening once or twice per week in some place in the world in film festival. So we are using the momentum right now. We are on the wave, enjoying the film festival promotions and talking with all these distributors, and we'll see. Like, of course, the movie will be for everyone, but we'll see through which medium. I was excited because last week it was in Wisconsin in a theater, in a cinema, and it was physically cinema. And I was like exciting to see. It has a special aspect ratio. It's like the double of a classical anamorphic. So I'm looking forward for the cinematic experience for everyone.
Jason could have drove there. You should have told us.
I've seen it
from there. Oh,
I'm not ready to be in a theater just yet.
Right. Yeah.
and this is the thing, we're talking all about this, but we're still like COVID is still around, right? So it's like special times for this type of things, and definitely kind of different, like one-on-one experience and living things in a different way. But it's the way it is, so we have to embrace it.
Yeah. Thank you both for just being so candid about the process of making this great film. Are there any projects that you would like to specifically spotlight that you're working on now, or anything that you want to push?
Right now, the focus on promotion and distribution is Externo. We are already in the development of the new film, but it's not like, it's kind of, we will be talking about this film as soon as Externo finish. Externo just started to be out, like
Sure.
just started. So now is to share this movie and experience with everyone who wants to see the film.
Yeah. If there's a festival that is screening it, we welcome everybody, right, to be able to see it. As soon as there's a way for anybody, outside festivals to be able to stream it online or see it, for sure it's going to be shared on social media. And yeah, thank you so much for having us here. It's a real pleasure.
Well, I mean, thank you for trusting us with your film. It's a very personal thing that you guys put out there to great success. And I can't wait for this to be the seed to the Taub brothers, 10 years down the line, you're now the, next Aronofsky's or, whatever, better, so, but it all started here on this show. So I appreciate that you let us talk to you about your film.
And same wise.
Exactly.
We're going to say Jason and John, we were their guests promoting External. Look at them now. We need to pay them so much for them to be part of their podcast, and we did it.
They gained a whole 5 subscribers since in 10 years. I remember them back then.
Hey man, you can start with $2,000 and take over the world. So
that's true. We'll do it in half the time because there's 2
build
of
it up
us.
in increments. Very cool.
Yeah, thank you guys so much again. Where can everyone find you on social media?
The movie Externo movie, the website, and you find Externo film and Externo movie in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, Tumblr. We are very present in social media. And also you can find us Taub brothers, Jonathan Taub and Leandro Taub. We are really there, out there.
And Jason, once again, really fun show. Where can everyone find you, sir?
I'm at Jason E. Alt on Twitter. Check out my pinned tweet for all the links to the projects I work on.
I am at John the Host on Twitter, or you can follow this very show at film_hooligans. This will be uploaded to iTunes and Spotify for all of you podcast listeners only, but thank you for joining us for this video. Please hit the subscribe button and hit the thumbs up button while you're here. And once again, I want to thank our special guests, the Taub brothers, Leandro and Jonathan. And until next time, thanks for watching.